And we are recording the session and we are streaming. So folks who are joining us on Zoom, we're recording the session as well, so we can send it out on YouTube. Hi, Rob. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in 2 minutes. Give people time to get all logged in. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. No, it is hard sometimes to block off time in the middle of the night. People have been working all day, so we really appreciate you joining us. And I think we're gonna have a really good conversation today and have a good time. So really appreciating everybody that's here today. Let's get started in about 1 more minute. What I'm gonna try to do is share my screen if I can. We'll get started in a couple minutes here. Again, for folks who are just joining us, especially here in the Zoom, please list your name, put your name in the chat. This will be the main way folks will be able to interact with us. There will be an opportunity for folks to ask questions. We're going to try to have those questions be answered in the chat. There will be an opportunity probably towards it later in the evening for folks to come off mic if they have to ask a question that's a little more complicated or need to follow up. And that goes for folks on Facebook Live. You won't be able to join us with your audio, obviously, but if you have a question, we are reading those comments and we will get those questions to our panelists as soon as possible. So thanks again, folks, for joining us today. Get a nice little crowd started. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and share my screen so we can get going, so we can get you guys out of here. But really appreciate you being here today. All right, can folks see my screen? I can only really tell for people that are in the Zoom meeting. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, awesome. So I'm Merrill Holloway, and I really appreciate you guys being here tonight. I am the Executive Director of NC 100, and I wanted to share a little bit about what our organization is about before we get started. As you see here, there's 3 things we kind of highlight that we'd like to lift up: empowerment in our community, education, supporting education, and all things towards that, and equity before equality. At the very least, we try to educate people on the difference between the two because they're not the same. We're a nonprofit based in Rockingham County, where we do some work statewide, and we are focused on mapping and identifying opportunities to enrich 100% of our communities using strategies influenced by experts inside and outside of Rockingham County. And we are trying to build new platforms for collaboration and accelerating change, which will be obviously realized here with some of these fine folks that we have joining us tonight. We do some coaching and training and support of organizations that are from marginalized communities in the world of just and unjust philanthropy. We like to build strategic relationships with mainstream organizations and those in proximity to build connections to under-resourced and underconnected agencies, and identifying resources that can strengthen our local agencies and residents. The Rockingham County Racial Equity Learning Community is also an organization that we have been involved in through the county to support equity in a bunch of different ways. And we are working together to produce and provide some more of these conversations down the road. This is the conversation 2 of a 3-part series. Our first series really dealt with public safety and community trust with the Reidsville Police Department. Today is economic and social justice. And in December, we're going to talk about protecting healthy outcomes. Tonight, there's a few things I just want to make sure people know that we are making some commitments as a group and as participants in this session is to have transparency and honesty We are going to talk with each other and agree to attack problems and the systems that we need to change, but not people. We are going to be making the most of our time, and we need to take care of each other and have some self-awareness of the space that we take. So we want to encourage folks that are asking questions and our panelists to be aware of the space that they take and the questions that are asked, and answer them with transparency and honesty. The way that this will work is I will introduce our moderator tonight, and we will begin a discussion with our panelists for a few minutes. And then we want to get to an interactive space to where people can ask questions in the chat to engage, so we can have this be a truly interactive session. And again, folks that are watching this on the live stream, you'll be able to ask questions, and we will be watching that page and trying to get those questions to our moderator. We want to know who's here, so definitely continue to, in the Facebook Live or here on the Zoom chat, definitely use that chat function to let us know who's here and who's not. Questions that don't get answered, we will be recording this and reposting it on our YouTube channel. And we'll also try to put out a document that kind of details a little bit of what we learned and shared tonight. And hopefully that'll be about Thanksgiving and we'll get a document out. And we're gonna start wrapping up around 8:10, 8:15, so we can guarantee we get you out here at 8:30. So we really appreciate you joining us tonight. Our moderator tonight is Dasia Moore. She's a reporter for the Boston Globe, and if there's other things that she'd like to share, we'll definitely let her do that. And she writes about public health and social justice. Before going to the Globe, she wrote for Quartz and Katie Couric Media, and graduated from Yale University in 2018 with a degree in ethics, politics, and economics, and served as the Autry Fellow at MDC in Durham, North Carolina for a year. For folks that are familiar with MDC, I know we have some folks that are joining us from the Triangle. She's proud to be a former Reedsville Middle School Raider who aspires to use her career to give back to the communities that poured into her. And to that end, Dasia serves on the board of the Yale Alumni Nonprofit Alliance and co-directs Go South, a nonprofit she co-founded while in college that provides summer fellows to Southern nonprofits fighting for justice. All right, and now we're gonna have, I'm very glad to introduce, we have a couple of students from from Rockingham County Early College. We have Aubrey Martin and Keenan Settle who are joining us today. And Aubrey is a senior at Rockingham Early College High School. She's the president of the History Club and a captain on the English team for the Academic Challenge Competition and a member of the National Honor Society. We also have Keenan Settle, who is also a senior at RECH High School, and he maintains an AB average, is an active member on his school's chapter of National Honor Society, History Club, and the Academic Challenge competition team. Outside of the classroom, Keenan is a devoted community servant and serves on the Hayes-Taylor YMCA committees of diversity and inclusion, as well as an iCivics ambassador. Keenan and Aubrey, we're going to take turns, and they're going to be talking to you about each one of our panelists. And I'll be showing you a little slide so you guys can read along. So we're going to turn it over to our great high school students who are supporting us today. Aubrey and Keenan.
Yes, hi. So Natasha Brooks serves as the co-founder of the Birthing Movement Incorporated, a nonprofit organization, as well as the department administrator for High Point University's Office of Student Success, and is a devoted mother to her two beautiful children, Haley and Connor. She's a proud member of Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated that received her bachelor's degree in special education K-12 from Bennett College in 2003 and served as a special education teacher with the North Carolina public school system for 12 years, in which she held several key leadership positions. While directing enrichment programs for Mount Zion Baptist Church of Greensboro, she proudly represented North Carolina at the National Educators Association and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People's Training on Uniting Young Educators and Activists to pursue efforts in civic engagement and voter education. In 2019, she was recognized as a Triad Business Journal 40 Under 40 leader, featured on Fox 8's Good for Her news segment, nominated as ACHI Magazine's 2019 Nonprofit Executive and ACHI Mentor of the Year. In 2020, she served as a mentor during the Triad Business Journal's Businesswoman's Mentoring Monday and won first place in the Business Owners category for Divine Magazine Awards, and she was recently recognized as a National Influencer nominee.
Good evening. Mr. Felton Fouché is a doctoral student at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, and community outreach and organizer for NC 100. Mr. Felton is detailed-oriented in his approach to situations, whether business or personal. This attention to detail leads itself to progress, which is vital to any endeavor. He feels that it is always necessary to know where you are headed and know how you are getting there. Along with the importance of detail and progress comes integrity. Being a man of his word allows for progressive communication, something he views as an invaluable commodity. It is Mr. Fouché's belief that knowledge is fluid. What you do today might not benefit you tomorrow, but it is no less valuable.
Michael Harris is an entrepreneur as owner principal for Each One Teach One Lawn Care. That organization includes community activism and youth development from a program he created called From Dope to Hope. He has been active in the greater Rockingham County community and beyond, working with young adults and others that have been connected to justice involvement. He is a dedicated supporter of democracy with efforts this election season to protect vulnerable populations in Rockingham, Guilford, and most notably support to the Grand North Carolina area. He is a valued partner in work being done with the Reidsville Teen Center and NC 100 in supporting community gardens.
Miss Natalie Marshall Rodriguez is an activist and fitness professional born in Bayamon, Puerto Rico. During her time at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, she was recognized as a 2017 Nobel Latino of the Triad. Currently, Miss Natalie serves as Executive Director for Latinx Life, a nonprofit organization that advocates for North Carolinian Latinos through providing resources for the community and opportunities for students. Combining the convenience of technology and her value of equity before equality, she believes in empowering people on and offline.
Isaiah Withers is a community organizer with the National Black Workers Center in Raleigh, North Carolina, and founder of the newly created Black Self-Defense Team. Growing up in Reidsville, North Carolina, Mr. Withers joined and eventually became president of the local youth chapter of the North Carolina NAACP, looking to combat structural racism and the upholding in institutions of white supremacy. At the NBWC, he is lead organizer of the pilot program Black Voices, Black Votes 2020. He works with local Black businesses and organizations to build partnerships that will hold elected officials accountable. The program collected over 3,000 surveys through canvassing and was featured in the online magazine Scalawag. He also helped work with the NBWC program Working While Black, which interviewed Black workers and shared their experiences of racial discrimination in the workplace. He is currently working to raise awareness about the 2020 census and the historical underrepresentation of Black populations in the decennial census. Before joining the NBWC, he co-founded Unknown Society, a broadly inclusive group dedicated to collective liberation that included young people from Winston-Salem State, North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, and surrounding communities. Group members worked together with other local organizations, including NC 100, on various civic engagement and community programs. One highlight was working with schools on educational programs based on hip hop music, creative arts, and entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to have our young folks involved in this session tonight, and really encourage you guys also to ask questions when we get an opportunity. So the next voice you hear will be from Ms. Dasia Moore.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I'm so excited about the lineup of panelists that we have. So we're just going to get right into it. The first thing that I want to ask is just, all of you approach your work from such different angles and in such different areas, but with a similar goal of achieving social and economic justice. So I want to just ask, what do those terms mean to you? And maybe we'll start with Natasha in order of the bios.
Sure, absolutely. Great evening, everyone. And again, Meryl, thank you for this opportunity to be on your platform. I guess when it comes to the area of social justice, of course, as we're familiar with it, it's about focusing on the marginalized and the oppressed groups, truly advocating for them. And it can be in a multitude of different areas, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, and it's following up on those principles of ensuring equity and access and the participation and just human rights. So all in all, I believe that it's that passion that comes from not wanting anyone to be without. Why would we? And to do everything that we can as individuals and collectively to ensure that everyone has those equal rights.
Thank you, Natasha. Michael, we'll go to you next. Michael, I think you're still on mute.
I apologize. I was just talking away. Good evening. Good evening. Thank y'all for having me, NC 100, and just being a part of this wonderful thing. Social justice, first thing come to my mind is equality, being equal, and then just being a voice for the voiceless. And why would I say that is a lot of people won't speak up about social justice. They're like, all right, I'm all right with it. It is what it is. It's not titled to me. I'm frustrated about it. I'm gonna give up about it. But I think when they find that we are standing for these things in our community and speaking up and speaking out about these things, it brings hope to them. That's why I like, for my thing is from dope to hope, where we bring hope to people because they see us speaking up and speaking out about these topics where they're afraid to speak up and speak out about because they've been taken away for so long from them. They feel there's no hope, and well, I'm not titled to this, and I can't get this, but you are, and I thank God for all of us that have come together for these type of situations. There's social justice and for equality and for unity and for love.
Thank you for that. Felton, we'll go to you next.
Good evening, everyone. So, with social justice and the economic, and what was the second part? I'm sorry.
Yes. So just what does social and economic justice mean to you?
So fairness, of course. Justice without social in front of it is just fine with me also. Economically speaking, addressing historical wrongs. There's a lot that America needs to repair, and it needs to be specific. I think there's a game being played with so many distractions in terms of whataboutisms and things of that nature of who we should address and how we should address them. The least of us should be addressed. Those that have experienced historical injustices should be addressed. And I think that begins at the top, but we at the bottom have to have the conversation loud enough for them to hear us.
It's an important point. Thank you. Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm very excited to be here. Social justice to me is that every member of the community feels included and that every member of the community feels physically and psychologically safe and has access to basic human rights. So a hot topic right now is diversity and inclusion. And we often forget just how diverse our different communities are. For example, take the Latino community, so many countries are within that umbrella, and each nationality has different struggles navigating the American system. So just social justice for me is that when there's a paved way for everybody.
Thank you. And Isaiah, will end with you.
Thank you, Dasia. And once again, NC 100, Meryl, it's an honor to be amongst a lot of great activists and organizers on this Zoom call. And I appreciate being part of this as well. And to answer that question, Dasia, for me, social justice is striving to live and not relying on surviving. And that is often our Black and brown communities and oppressed communities. And I think just to kind of bounce off of what Mike said earlier, that ranges from not only those who are holding positions in power and the elected officials or our activists or organizers, but from the Black woman who will be the Girl Scout leader at her local church and working with the Girl Scouts and creating a safe space to talk about issues happening in their own lives. So that ranges from that to a funeral home business, helping Black families to relieve that pain in their harshest grief and moment of pain, get over that by working with them to have a better burial for their lost loved one. So I think social justice can range from not only the big, but everybody is included in the making of good social justice in our country.
Another really great point. Yeah, often in this work, whether from the perspective of organizing for social justice or reporting on it, then we can get lost in, what needs to be fixed. But it's so important to look at those things that are happening in people's everyday lives to build and support their communities. I want to return to something that Felton said about, there are people who are kind of have the levers of power at the top, but we all need to be having those conversations loud enough wherever we are, to make sure that they start hearing those. So Felton, I'd love it if you could say a little bit more about that idea, and then anyone else who wants to jump in and add, that would be great.
So in essence, it's a process, and I think it begins with events such as this. We are living in a weird time and space where you're not supposed to be socializing as we once were. You got more time to sit at home and think about things that you may have never thought of before. And fortunately for us, we have technology and we can share space in this manner, and we can have a conversation that may not take place otherwise. Definitely not with the same group of people, because everybody moves in a different circle. But the COVID time has allowed for us to be social in a new way. So with that being said, talking here matters. What I do in my personal life matters. The conversations that you choose to have in your personal lives matter. Something that I often say to my white friends, if you're in spaces and you feel a certain type of way, it is up to you to represent someone like me in that space, because I may not be there and I may not get the real honest thoughts of that person that occupies that space with you. So represent a mindset, take it everywhere, share it, and eventually those that need to hear about it, they should, if they're listening.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Did anyone else want to add to that?
Sure, absolutely. I will. I'm in agreement with Felton as well. I definitely believe that these are great avenues to have those initial conversation starters and to try to educate individuals. But I also think that you have to then, once you have these conversations, hold people accountable for the what's next. Yes. Because what you will find out at different institutions are they will do checks box type of tasks. And so then you have the same conversation going on in different groups, but no progress. So when you have people in the community that are committed, that are knowledgeable, allow these people to keep going to the next level and sit at the tables where with the people that have the power to make the true change. So I feel like, for example, I know that I serve at High Point University, and of course that's a predominantly white institution, and that's something that I brought on panels. Also, people are intimidated when they know that maybe that's not what people really want to do. They want to put it on paper. They might want to put out a public press release stating that things are going to be done, but then that needs to be the end of it. Don't stir up any, as we want to say, as my button says, any good trouble or any, don't question it. Don't ask for the data or expect there to be true change. So again, I think it really falls back to accountability.
Yeah. I want to piggyback on what they said, great things, their topics. But like I said, we must speak up and speak out about anything you see or hear. That's our Black, white, Hispanic, wherever we at, when we having conversations, if you see something that's not right, don't just turn your head. Speak up and speak out about that. You got to make people uncomfortable. I think some people got complacent with, well, I'm not going to say nothing. I don't want no one to get uncomfortable. I don't want nobody to get mad at me. But we got to get past that. You got to make some people mad. You're going to have to ruffle some feathers in a good way. Because why I say in a good way, because if we don't get uncomfortable and you stay complacent and you stay comfortable with being happy with being done wrong, then you're going to stay in that state of mind where you can't grow. Well, we got to get into the point where, hey, I might make you upset today, but you'll come to me tomorrow and say, man, I appreciate that. That helped me, man. I looked at it a different way. And that's what I think people need to start doing, is let people look at it in a different way. Speak on it, speak out about it. That's on your job, whatever it is. If you're not being treated fair, speak up and speak out. Stop running, stop hiding and being mad and then going home and telling your husband or your wife about it. Tell someone at work about it. To pull your supervisor to the side and say, hey, I don't believe this is right. And you know, that's what we are here for. I mean, a lot of people say, why do you do the work that you do? Because like I just said earlier, I want to be the voice for the voiceless. Not that they're not here, but they're here and can't speak out because they're afraid to speak out. And that's where we have a lot of people in our communities like that. They got a lot to say. They say, well, I just join Zoom calls, or I just post about it, or I just come on live and watch. I don't want to be on the front line. I want to be on the front line. I'm not tired. I'm not running and I'm not hiding. I'm out here for my peoples. I'm out here for all peoples, because I want us to be together in unity and making love and making happiness in our community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all. Yeah, and I want to go off of, so Michael, your organization is Each One, Teach One, and you brought up some of those themes in your answer just now. And then Natalie also mentioned how even when we're talking about our own communities or what we see as our own community or identity, there's a lot of diversity within that, diversity of experience, of background. So how do we meet people where they are in our own communities and recognize difference, even as we're working towards a common goal? Natalie, if you want to start, that would be great.
So I'll give an example just to piggyback off of that. I think to acknowledge differences and work towards a common goal, you have to understand the individual struggle of that person. And so, example for myself, I'm Puerto Rican. I was born a US citizen. When it comes for me in obtaining higher education, there's not much blockage for me. But upon being in university, I met immigrants who some weren't residents of this country, and I saw their struggle of obtaining higher education. So though we were working towards the same thing, they were going through something completely different than I was. So it really just comes to befriending people outside of your circle and be willing to listen, but also explaining your struggles in a way that they'll understand.
Thank you. Isaiah?
Yes, and just to add off of what Natalie just stated, perfect is I agree with that wholeheartedly. And reaching out to the people and going to the people, and something that we did with our organization with Black Voices, Black Votes, was to go into the community and just ask, what are some of the issues that you are facing? And that started with, by raise a hand, who all go to barbershops and salons on this call? Pretty much everybody, unless you're looking in the mirror and trying to get the back of your edge up, which usually ends wrong. We would go to the barbershops and the salons, and we would hold these conversations with the barbershops. And if you know anything about the barbershops and salons, you'll go into a debate for 5 hours. But through that, we all came out, and everybody saw their different perspectives. But the action piece that Natasha brought up so well was implemented to say, we're going to come back to this barbershop. We're going to meet here, and we're going to talk about how we can do this fish fry, how we can invite out the baby or J. Cole to come and perform at this, or how we're going to have Mike come out and speak about Dope to Hope. We were able to kind of generate that and build that. So I think going to the people, and going to the people can mean standing outside, you maybe running into people at Food Line, door-to-door canvassing, online what we're doing now, but going directly to the people, speaking with the people, creating that action next step is a huge component.
That's great. Thank you. Wanted to give a quick shout out to Ms. Marshall Rodriguez, who's on the Facebook chat, who threw out her own answer for what social justice is, which is a paved way for the marginalized. So thank you for sharing that comment. You know, I wanted to bring the conversation a little more current and topical with the news. We all just got off of an election week, some of which is still ongoing. And something that I've seen a lot in the organizing communities that I'm a part of and follow is, you know, there's a range of emotions and reactions to the election in terms of what it says about a country that has a long history that goes far beyond one administration of oppression, of inequality, of white supremacy. And while some of those things were crystallized maybe more clearly in the Trump administration, people have reacted differently about what the election news means for the country and for organizers. So I would love to hear how all of you are thinking about how your work might change or might not change in the coming year. Maybe we'll start with Felton. I haven't heard from you in a minute.
I will try to be brief, but it's a lot to unpack there. Symbolism needs to die. Symbolism needs to catch COVID and get up out of here. What I see coming down the line as far as our political future as a nation is an attempt to go back to the center, if there ever was one, an attempt to lull us back to sleep and celebrate things that are not tangible. Trayvon Martin happened while we had a president of color in office. Eric Garner happened while we had a president of color in office. And sometimes when I listen to him speak, President Obama speak now, it's like he never was president. Some of the things that he engages in discussions about are things that he could have led from the top office in the land in addressing. I don't say that to bash the guy, but I supported him and I felt let down. But where we are today is just a symptom of a place we've always been. In terms of being Black in America, there are moments in this history, and I remind myself of them frequently because I'm a historian. Very depressing, the Black experience in America. Really quickly, I looked at, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the former slave whose back is always shown in these pictures. It's really wept up. Gordon was his name, I believe. And that's a Black man that you see experience in America at its worst stage, is slavery. And then you fast forward some years and you get Emmett Till, his mother's saying, leave the casket open so everybody can see what they did to my boy, Black child. Then you fast forward some years, you get Trayvon Martin. You fast forward a couple more years, you get George Floyd. It takes the slow death of a man, 9 minutes, 8 minutes and some change of him asking to breathe, for the nation to get galvanized and just say, hey, what the hell is going on? It's been going on. And until we address that, we run the risk of doing that same little thing, that little cyclical motion over and over, where we feel good because we get something that looks good, but we're not good inside. America is obsessed with feeling good and not obsessed with being good.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to jump in on that one? One other question I had for everyone, especially the people who have kind of launched their own nonprofits or endeavors, is, we were talking about institutional power and what those of us who have more or less of it need to do, what is everyone's part in the struggle for justice. I would love to hear from some of you about how you found your own power and your own place in this fight. Maybe we'll start with Isaiah, since he found an unknown society.
Absolutely, Dasia, thank you. And just to champion off what you said, Unknown Society was started by me, good friends of mine I went play football with in Reedsville, grew up with in Reedsville. And it was simply to, as us being 22, 23 years old, going to college campuses, speaking to our African-American friends, speaking to all the Black folks and trying to build that organizing piece of connecting education with civic engagement in the local communities around them. Now that has built into over years of organizing into the Black Self-Defense Team. And that is just a response not only to the police, the brutal police brutality that has happening to our people and has been happening from night watchers. It's also a response of knowing our rights and how to defend ourselves by any means necessary as a people. And that is something that we're trying to do now through civic engagement, know your rights training, and also kind of connecting that bridge between knowing what is happening in our city council meetings and knowing who is dictating, who's turning on the water, who's turning on the lights for your grandmother and your aunt's house, and holding them accountable just in case we have to cut the bad cancer out like a professional surgeon. We will have to do that. But just in those different forms, hopefully I answered the question good, Dasia, but just in those forms is how I would probably sum it up.
Absolutely. Natasha, do you also want to jump in about this?
Sure. I know I'll speak personally first. As for me, to be honest, even though I was aware of things happening in our society, I think I was so focused on, especially as a single mother, on surviving, that I really wasn't focused on getting out there to truly make an impactful difference to help when it came to this area, especially in the area of civic engagement. Now, when I was an educator, as a special education teacher, yes, I did advocacy, especially for those with different disabilities. But on this front, while I hate that COVID had to come for us to shut in, and to be paused for a moment, to have to watch George Floyd video over and over and over again. At the same time, I appreciate it because it has now completely shifted my life, where I knew I could no longer just be a bystander, right? And so from that, it has been beautiful because I have a 10-year-old son who's bringing things to my attention. And then I have a 19-year-old daughter who's bringing things to my attention. And they're the ones that encouraging me, Mom, get out there. Look, we're praying for you. Get out there and make a difference. You know, thank you for being courageous. Or, hey, have you seen this article? Or have you, and actually being able to have those conversations that I did not have with my family. So I believe that that's going to make a difference because they're aware and they're more likely to get and stay involved as well. On a nonprofit front, again, it was focused on empowerment. And now, that piece has to be built in when it comes to building in civic engagement and true leadership and what that looks like, and getting them around those that are truly educated in various areas. So that, we got to be a bridge for the different generations. I love that I can sit with a seasoned saint or, a true community pillar, but I can also sit with a youth and be able to try to bridge that gap, because I think we all need one another. There shouldn't be that was then and this is now, and we don't need them and they don't need us, because we all really truly need one another.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to mention that we have a couple of comments from the Facebook Live watch from Jerlane Washburn, my Aunt Gerald, and Deborah Franklin, just sharing a little confusion about Felton's comments about the Obama administration. So I just want to acknowledge that and say that kind of goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, about having diversity of thought and opinions in our communities and how we meet one another and have those conversations. I think that we are getting towards time where we want some questions from the audience. So please start sharing those in the Zoom chat or on the Facebook Live, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Another thought while we're waiting on those to come through, kind of related to the news as well, there's been a big backlash over the past couple of days to an announcement that, implied that the Biden-Harris administration will be forgiving some portion of student loans as soon as they enter office. And I think that backlash has shown something that is a thread throughout recent US history, at least, which is whenever we talk about programs that might alleviate some inequities and inequalities, then some people say that it's a handout. So I just want to know how each of you has encountered that mindset in the past and how you've confronted or challenged it. Anyone can start on this one.
I'll go if nobody else takes the microphone. So it's only a handout when it affects, certain groups of people, right? The middle class was established off of a handout, basically. FDR and the GI Bill and things of that nature that made us a better country, but we're still not accessible on the levels to African Americans as they were to white Americans. That could be considered a handout. So what I will say about this student loan question, still a large percentage of Black people who are at this current state in time overly represented in prisons, overly represented in poverty, overly represented in homelessness. Most of them didn't go to college. So this will be another gain to be had by middle class whites who probably were okay anyway. Yeah, student debt is tremendous. It's exploitive. It's a terrible thing that we've done. We've monetized making an informed citizenry. We've maximized the monetization of it. But yeah, fixing that fixes some people who just don't really need it to the extent that others do, that have been here forever and are struggling and never even got the chance to go into debt by going to college. Something that I'm more concerned with is this notion that Biden is already making overtures about, not seeking to hold Trump accountable for some of the things that have transpired in this nation under his watch and some of his behaviors. So, a la Nixon's leaving the office and there's no criminal prosecutions that are even visited. So I say all that to say, yeah, I'm gonna mute myself now.
To go back to the student loan debt, well, I know it doesn't benefit everybody. Some people don't go to school. Some people don't take out loans to go to school. I believe that it could truly help those that have gone. So even though in most universities, it's just proportionate the amount of white students versus any other kind of student that attends, but there's people within our communities that could really use that help. For example, there's undocumented students in North Carolina who have to pay out-of-state tuition to go to school, and they can only do so through privatized loans because they're not eligible for financial aid. And so while it does benefit the middle class and whoever else had it, I believe it can also help us. Yeah, I mean, and of course there is backlash to it because whenever our communities start to do something, the level of it goes down or it's not as honored for whatever reason that is. We kind of know why. Yeah, I honestly hope it does happen. Don't know if it will, but I do think it could be of aid to our community.
I'd like to chime in really quick just to give a little bit of perspective. So I'm of the mindset that I am perfectly fine with any level of student debt forgiveness, really even beyond $10,000. So I'm fine with that. However, as someone who paid off their student loans 1,000,000 years ago and made choices to contain the debt that I would incur, I can understand. I have the perspective of other people, whether they be white, black, or indifferent, not white, black, or indifferent, but white, black, or other Latinx, whatever it may be. I have the perspective, I understand their perspective of saying, well, if we give $10,000 for people to, I guess, clear their debt, what are the chances that that's going to be used properly, regardless, once again, of race, to address the debt? So a lot of people will be very, very responsible. And I would think that that's what's going to be done. And people will use that money to take off debt that they have. But I think some people, unfortunately, will take some of that money and not apply it in a judicious fashion and just add to the money problems that they already have. So once again, to go back to what my original statement was, which is I have no problem with us engaging in this. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here. And I'm kind of just saying that I do also understand a different perspective, regardless of race. Now, of course, if you start adding in issues of race and culture, we do understand that that changes the mindsets of a lot of people when it comes to how the money is applied, just like this situation with COVID-19. So I think as soon as the nation figured out that certain people had issues with COVID-19 that other people might not have had, not necessarily because of race, but because of the way that that person had to interact with other people, then they felt more comfortable saying, okay, well, let's not wear masks. So, and I think, like I said, going back, I think people are going to have certain ideas, and you know, you talked about this a little bit, Felton. Certain people are going to have certain ideas about how to treat this issue based on race. So I understand that. I just wanted to say that I have not a different perspective, but I can understand a different perspective. That's it.
If I may just briefly, one of the key things that needs to be considered, Mike, is that there was a time when a college education basically, just like houses were basically supposed to afford you some wealth, a college education was supposed to afford you a better job, which would give you the ability to pay back those loans without sacrifice or struggle. Once again, we've exploited education to the point that now a degree or two may still only get you a job that pays what you may have made if you just went to work out of high school. That's unfortunate, but that's facts. Once again, I take that argument in terms of what that looks like to the bigger perspective and picture of Black folks as citizens of this great land since its inception, fought in every war, been more American than some people could ever be, are hurting, and not a lot of them went to college. So the prioritization of repair in terms of fixing people who went to college versus fixing people who have been oppressed and discriminated against for generations, that priority for me is up here, and it should be for everyone because it makes us a better nation. Period. Point blank.
Thank you all for this conversation. I think that some things that stood out to me in that are that, you know, it's very difficult because this, I would say because this country has a history and a culture of a scarcity mindset, that it's difficult to have conversations about social supports, even for people, you know, all of us in this room, in this virtual room, agree that we need to pursue justice. But it's hard to have those conversations because it often comes down to either a question of prioritization, which you raised, Felton, or what you raised, Michael, about fiscal responsibility. And I think that you know, one thing that is incumbent on all of us to do is to try whenever we can to think beyond those modes. But I think that you know, both of you had excellent points that were well taken. We do have a question from our NC LEAP students for the panel. One question is, what ways can teens meaningfully support social justice movements? And if someone who works with young people wants to answer first, that would be great.
I'll jump into that, Dasia. To answer that question, to whoever the young person is, it's basically using what you have and implementing in it different highlights of social justice. So if whoever is saying this is, it can range from a lot of things. If you're an artist, having a song that highlights what's going on in our neighborhoods and being that journalist to what's happening on the block, what's happening on the corner, what's happening in the city council building, or when I even as far as the city council building, but highlighting that in your lyrics when you write it to have that impact on it, from like Tupac to the other artists, Chuck D, Public Enemy. If y'all don't know them, look them up. I know a lot of you are young. But highlighting that in your music is a way. So, you know, taking what you have, if you're a comic book illustrator, writing it in your comic books. If you're a skateboarder, speaking about it when you meet up with your crew, just using what you have around you and highlighting the different things that you see are issues in your community. It doesn't have to be something out of the wazoo, this and that, but just start to look around what you have already. And like what Mike already said, giving back to the football team, speaking about it in the locker room, speaking about it in the huddles. First kind of see around you what you have and use your resources to the best you have.
I'll speak up and speak out about that because I work with the youth. The best way I can say is utilize what you have in front of you. And what I mean about that is what they give you, research that, what they give you. Don't just take what they say and what they do. Research what they say and what they do and find out the truth. Because they'll tell you something, but is it the truth? Mama will tell you something, but is it the truth? Daddy will tell you something, but is it the truth? That mama said that daddy said this, but that's where a lot of this stuff happens is where racism happened. People are living a racist life because of mama said this and daddy said this. Go find out, is it the truth? Why are you hating somebody? Why you dislike somebody? That's how you can get involved with this social justice thing. And that's how we can start bridging the gap of hate to get to loving each other and showing care to each other and being unified and getting justice for the things that we don't get justice for in our communities. Even in Rockingham County, there's things we have to fix. And even in our school system, we have to fix where we have Reedsville High School and Rockingham High School. And we know, but I won't get deep on that topic, but I will make people uncomfortable. But we have to get to these points where we have to speak up and speak out where people don't want to speak up and speak out about where things is not right. That we know that's not right, but people are turning their head on. That's how you get involved, your young people, because this is y'all's future. I want their knee off y'all off the next generation's life, off the next generation's dream, off the next generation's vision. They have to get their knee off y'all's neck for y'all can breathe, for y'all can move forward. That's what we're fighting for every day. That's what I'm standing for. And I know my other sisters and brothers is for y'all generation to be blessed and to be better and be prosperous.
Yeah, I would say even, you know, within your schools, getting involved in different councils and perhaps you have a group that you want to start trying to find out the different policies and implementing that so that you can take on those issues that you are very passionate about. I'm a strong advocate in purpose partnerships. So as you are maybe striving towards community service learning hours, maybe being more deliberate and the organizations that you get paired up with in the community that might parallel again with this area that you are interested in. Also kind of piggybacking off of what we kind of alluded to earlier, it's kind of, you know, if you see something, say something. If it's not right, don't just go along to get along. Really speak up when you see that something is out of order, be it with another peer or be it with an adult. Try to find someone or someone that is a safe place for you where you can speak up and speak out, and then go forward with that. Even if it does come with maybe a little bit of persecution because it might not be popular, at the end of the day, if you know that it's the right thing, then go with that.
I have to say something because I worked with young people for a long time and I do it now with Meryl's organization also. Love them. I definitely want you guys to understand that have fun, enjoy your youth. Don't take the things that we have failed to address in our adulthood as yours. Get to know each other, have fun, be kids, be youth. But understand where you live, understand the system that you live in so that you can be representatives at some point in your lives. understand that education matters, and it does not have to come from an institution. Go to the library, go to Amazon.com and order some books. Use this device for something besides taking pictures and posting some other stuff. Just Google stuff. Enlighten your mind, and don't be afraid to be present where you don't feel comfortable, because this country is yours just as much as it's anybody else's.
Absolutely. Thank you all. We also have some advice for teens coming in the chat for those of you watching on Facebook. So Rob Martin says, I think teenagers need to challenge adults in their lives and point out things that adults don't see. So speak up and speak out. Portia Paris says, encourage young people to use their voices because many aren't comfortable speaking up and speaking out. So it's also a job for all of us who have learned and built that comfort over time to teach people younger than us to feel comfortable in their voices as well. We also had a shout out for Isaiah's Raleigh Life video, which I believe included a lot of young voices in that city. So it was a great creative project, a creative way to get that message out. And then Mari Carmen Garduno agreed on the Facebook chat about using social media better to inform your peers and share information about causes that are important to you. So lots of good advice on that front. We're still taking questions. If anyone has questions that they want to ask out loud on Zoom, just message Merrill. And if you have questions on the Facebook chat, we're monitoring both and trying to make sure we integrate both of those conversations. So just let us know if you have any questions. You know, I do want to return to the idea of, you know, what would systemic change or justice at the systemic level look like? Or where would that need to start? Because we know it looks like a lot of things, right? But I would just love to hear, you know, if you had your kind of moonshot goal for what social justice, economic justice, all forms of justice would look like in this country, it would be great to hear that. Maybe we'll start with Natalie, because I don't think you got to answer the last one.
So I have a lot of answers for that question, but probably the one that I'm most passionate about right now is finding a pathway to citizenship for dreamers. So for those of you that don't know what dreamers are, they are undocumented youth. Well, they used to be youth, some of them are adults now, under what's called DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And so they came here from another country, brought here by their parents. They apply for DACA, which right now they have to apply yearly for it. They pay, and if approved, they get to work in the country, they get to go to school, get a driver's license and all that great stuff, but there's no pathway to citizenship for them. So though they've been here their whole youth and now into adulthood, they're here. And if DACA is ever taken away from them, they could be at risk of getting deported at any time. So for me, social justice would be for people that have been here most of their life to be able to stay here without living in fear.
Thank you. We have another question coming in from the Facebook Live from Chip Hughes asking, what are career paths for making social change? Maybe we can start with Michael this time.
Career paths that I have for social change is a lot of, like in the Black communities, a lot of people are not, our Black sisters and brothers would not go to school. So I'm I'm pushing, go get you a trade. Everybody, not just blacks, any race. If you're not gonna go to school, go get a trade. I requested that at one of our city council meetings, a building we had in Rockingham County. They wanted to make it into a housing development building, but I said, that's bringing money into y'all's pocket. Let's put money back into our community by making a skilled trade building for welding, electrician, and plumbing. And they were vowed that we got these other places for this, but I'm speaking of that for people that can't afford these things. Let's get these things in our community that we can put money back into our community. I'm a guy that came out of prison. The odds are stacked against me because they say I'll be back in prison in less than 1 to 3 years. But I flipped the script on it. That's why my thing is from dope to hope. I used to sell drugs. I used to run the streets using drugs and alcohol. But now I flipped the script by the grace of God. That now I push this message that if I can do it, you can do it. We are have to go back into that revolving door. I didn't have to go back to that revolving thing that I was doing. That's why now I'm pushing this message that, look, hey, there is hope. There is hope. You have to believe in yourself. Some people have been broken down so much, been beat down, have been turned around when they walked in the door and applied for a job, have been broken down and they applied to go to school and they couldn't get in there because they couldn't afford to go to school. It's so many different barriers that people have been like, they're struggling with. They have given up. But that's what now we can get trades for our people that can make them better, to get them advance them in life. And they'll make more money than, like our brother said earlier, than going to school. You know, you didn't wasted $80,000 and only making $35,000. You know, you'd wasted 4 years, but not to damper someone from not going to college. But college is not for everybody. So I want to, like, skilled trade, welding, electrician, and whatever other skilled trades there is to provide in our communities to help our community by bringing money into that community, because then you keep jobs in your community.
Yeah.
If I could answer that, truth be told, I think any career, to be quite honest, I feel like you could be a painter and be, taking place with social justice. You could be a nurse. You could be an environmentalist. You could be an educator. I think the key is to whatever you're in, finding your place and feeling it out and seeing where you are really needed and what skills that you have to be the most effective when it comes to social justice.
Yeah, thank you both for those answers. I think the range of job titles and focus areas that we have on this panel is a great example of exactly what Natasha said, which is that you can really turn any career path, any life experience into a social justice mission. We did have a couple more questions in the chat here. Rob Martin asked about the idea of raising the minimum wage as a way to shrink the wealth gap and income distribution in this country. I'm not up to speed on the most recent numbers, but I know that if it's not the most unequal time in contemporary US history, it is among the most. And so we're seeing a lot of wealth inequality and income inequality. So thoughts on raising the minimum wage or other ways of addressing that gap?
Yeah, just because you said something that I think I've read the other day, by 2053, I think they're saying Black folks will be at zero as far as wealth goes. So minimum wage, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want more money, but does the cost of living go up just because the minimum wage is raised? Generational wealth, the lack thereof in the Black community, that is showing in a lot of the data that's coming up on that we're coming up on right now, that as Dasia just mentioned, it's the worst it's ever been. And how do you fix it? Black folks were made almost alien to wealth building during the time where you could buy homes, because white folks left those areas and took their money with them. So a home that was purchased 30 or 40 years ago in a predominantly Black neighborhood doesn't incur the same level of wealth that it would had it been elsewhere. So there's a lot of unpacking that takes place when you get into the discussion about wealth and generational wealth and the wealth, the racial wealth gap, and all of that stuff. And honestly, the discussion is going to lead, as a lot of my research has, and the discussions that I've had and the people that I pay attention to, is going to lead to repair for the Black community. And I'm speaking specifically for African Americans, people who descend from slavery, the institution of slavery. It's going to lead to that discussion. It has to. Generational disrepair requires repair that speaks to the generations of disrepair. So it's a bigger conversation that we could have here, but understand that it is real. That is a real thing. It's not just about slavery. It's about redlining. It's about Jim Crow. It's about the prison industrial complex. It's about so many other things that have to be addressed inside of it. Dr. William Sandidarity's work, From Here to Equality, check it out. Yvette Carnell, Antonio Moore, research them. The conversation is being had, and it is an honest one. And why I appreciate it so much is because history is what it is at its core. History is undeniable.
Thank you, Felton. We also have some questions coming from Facebook about the long-lasting impacts of COVID-19 on this generation of young people, of students and early career people as well. And that's something that I've been thinking a lot about, reporting on COVID and being a young person at this time and trying to think through the future. So I just wonder if any of your advice or outlook for the young people that you work with has changed during this time, and how you think this pandemic will impact them moving forward. Maybe we'll start with Natalie.
Well, being a part of the youth, I think I'm pretty young. I believe that the world we already lived in a digital world, and a lot of businesses were shifting towards the digital narrative, or digital space, I should say. But this really sped everything up. So we already have the younger generations growing up in the digital space. So I know that at times it can be overwhelming because now everything is on your phone or laptop, whether it be your social media, school, your job, whatever it may be. But I would say to be mindful of where you are when you're not in the digital space as well. It's so easy to make the digital space your reality when there's also a reality to be mindful of outside of that. So the digital space is great to meet people, explore ideas, but then take those ideas and take them outside, take them to the streets, and that's where you can use your voice and your power.
Yeah, we have a request from the chat that I think is a great idea, which is to ask Aubrey and Keenan, since y'all are here with us, how is it changing your senior year of high school?
It has been good and bad, negative and positive. I try to see positive in it because I don't really have a choice. I have to do it. But I have been an active student. I like going to school, but being like on lockdown and social distancing has made me appreciate the opportunity and the chance to actually go and sit in the classroom. But it has just become difficult for me. I have to have more discipline to sit down for 3 hours at a time on Zoom, listening to someone's lecture. And what I would do is my attention span is not as long as it should be, I guess. So I would still do something productive, like dishes or laundry, cleaning up, reading a book. And what I'll just do is go back and watch the class on my own time. But it definitely is a new norm and something that we have to get acclimated to, especially now that certain companies like Microsoft is making working from home consistent.
Thank you. Aubrey, did you want to share?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it definitely has been a quick and unexpected change from where we were in the semester last year versus what our semester is looking like now this year. And the lack of social interaction has been difficult. You know, I think one of the most important aspects of school, especially at the high school age, is kind of building your relationships and your kind of inner circle and that sort of thing. And losing that aspect has been tough. But like Keenan said, this is kind of the new normal for a lot of different work avenues and areas. So it is good to kind of have this background, but I definitely do miss one-on-one interaction with professors and classmates alike.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congrats to both of you for almost making it there, and navigating a really tough time and year.
Dasia, can I speak on this as well? I have the
Absolutely.
privilege of serving as a co-facilitator for a group called First Year Navigators, and there are 70 leaders on our campus who oversee all of the incoming freshmen to help guide and navigate the transition. And when we had a virtual meeting and I brought up how everyone was doing, and some of these very same things came up, but the mental health aspect is huge. There were some that I think had some things going on, but they were able to deflect that and cover it up through sports, or through Greek life or other things of that nature. But since a lot of those things have been shut down, they've had to be with themselves a lot more. So I know some of them talked about how their depression or their anxiety has gone up. I've had some that stated, you know, people that I thought were my friends, I realized weren't, because I couldn't do things for them, which kind of ended up being, it was hurtful, but it was also a positive for them because it was enlightenment. Some have stated that they took on other types of study skills that they had not had previously, because they always had like maybe a free flow party life, I'm on the go. But now because of the change, they had to become more studious. And then some actually brought up personal aspects in terms of even their family's businesses, how they once sold one type of product, but again, had to make that quick shift to implement, you know, start making masks, or like you said, to go from just a brick and mortar to an online store. So it's definitely quite interesting all the way around. But again, that mental health piece definitely stands out for me.
Yes, thank you for sharing that and bringing that up. It's something that's impacting everyone right now. So I hope everyone in the midst of their social justice work is also taking time to take care of themselves.
If I could, Dasia, just
Of
really
course.
quickly, I wanted to say, Aubrey, as someone who moonlights as a professor, TA at UNCG, we miss you guys also. The physical presence is definitely something that I took for granted on the Fridays that I got to work with the college students. And when that ended as abruptly as it did, it's been something to deal with in this digital realm. But I want you guys to know you're experiencing something that America's had a good run of nothing like this occurring. And you guys are experiencing it in your youth. So hopefully, when you guys are in charge of things, you know what it is to want to deal with something like this before it gets out of hand. And when you guys take the steering wheel, stuff like this will be limited in how it affects us as a nation.
Thank you for sharing that, Felton. Yeah, I wanted to say that I have been so impressed reporting on the racial justice protests over the summer, and so many other smaller scale efforts at equity and justice have been directed by and organized by high school and college students this year. And we're seeing that. I know that y'all are under a lot of additional stress and pressure, but it's also very clear to me that young people are making good use of whatever new time or new formats, new schedules they have to learn, to educate their peers and educate their entire communities. So it's really encouraging.
Can I say something as well, Dasia? I know I don't want to keep time going and everything, but just something I want to lift up too for any young kids that are listening in now. especially in rough areas, poverty-stricken areas. School is an escape from our neighborhoods and what we have to go through and the PTSD that we develop living in our neighborhoods, which we're not really living, we're surviving. So if you are watching this and you are tuned into this right here, I will always say that is extremely difficult. We feel for you to keep, you know, you might be stuck in confines physically, but your mind is never stuck in confines. You can always, you know, as long as you got your mind moving, you can always break out of those confines. And also I want to lift up too, with my information being on this, that if you are going through that situation and just different tools to make it through, you can please feel free to reach out to me through NC100 with Merrill. And I'm sure everybody else on here would love to talk to you as well. Just staying strong in a time like this. I just want to definitely lift up those kids in this moment.
Yeah, thank you for that, Isaiah. I'm also going to call on a guest that we have who's going to ask a question through Zoom, Lamicia Whittington. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, sure. Good evening. I did have one question as it pertains like the administration with the election of Kamala and Joe Biden. What do you think, or what do you see as that administration coming in? What impact will it have on our folks and marginalized communities? Will anything change, or are there things that we need to be looking at differently in this coming year for our communities and organizing? What do you think this administration will do for us, if anything?
If I was to say something about that, I think what happened with that, it showed us if we came together, what big change we can make. We got everybody out to vote. When I say we, people that was speaking up and speaking about, get out and vote, get out and let your voice be heard. And we've seen what happens if you get out and vote. We've seen what happens if you cast your ballot in and say, hey, look, I'm gonna make a difference. I'm gonna make a change in my community. But the change happens in our community when we start coming together and voting in these 2-year elections as they come around to make a difference in our community as a whole by putting the right people in the places that we need right around here, as our mayor, as our governor, our city councilman, these little small areas, our board of education, these things, what we need to make a difference in is around us. That's what we need to make sure we are preaching that when that 2-year come around. We tell our young ones, that people that say, well, I don't like voting, I don't vote, today you need to get out and vote, because your vote does count and your vote does matter. As a convicted felon, I can't vote, but they won't want me to vote because our vote matter and our vote counts. So I'll get out and preach the message that your vote matters, your vote count. So get out and vote. And right now we've seen, like I said earlier, our vote does matter and our vote does count, because if it didn't, we wouldn't have Biden, we wouldn't have Ms. Harris in these seats, because people got out and voted and they was tired of these things that's been going on the last 4 years. So they got out and made their vote count. And I thank God for that, because now we're gonna see change, because we're gonna do things in our community. These people are just putting us in a seat in Washington, D.C., but the change starts in our community with us doing work in the community, not just marching and protesting for George Floyd, for Breonna Taylor, but marching to these city council meetings, marching to the board of education meetings. That's where the change starts at, in our community. Going out to the school meeting, PTO meetings, that's where change starts at. Not just with the president and the vice president. Change starts with us doing things in our community.
So if I may, and I'm glad time is of the essence, because I could go on and on. The top of the ticket, I was not enamored with, had a lot of consternation about, and how it came to be. Clyburn in South Carolina delivered Joe Biden the nomination when he was clearly lagging. So politics became more of a thing as opposed to what the people were asking. And here we are, supposedly in a celebratory mood about transition of power that just desires to get us back to the status quo. Being progressive is something that seems to be the antithesis of being American right now. and that's a sad case. So to answer your question, Lamisha, I don't know how it speaks to us being a better nation when the structure allows for this type of manipulation to take place the way that it did for the elevation of Kamala Harris, who I think was fourth or fifth in terms of her viability when she was running for president. There's a lot more I could say, but the desire to get back to more of the same is to our detriment, and it's not worthy of my celebration.
Thank you both. Lamicia, I know you also do activist work, so if you wanted to comment as well, feel free to, but no pressure.
Dasia, I can't end with no pressure. I don't want to take up space. So just with that being said, I absolutely agree with both comments that were elevated. And looking in retrospect of the fact that North Carolina is still counting ballots. Elections aren't finished for North Carolina. There are counties that are still in the midst of declaring who are winners in our state. And so we really can't be afforded the opportunity to celebrate the closure of an election because elections aren't over. And that's when we're talking about really having to be really clear, and this is the comments that were just made, is that what is down ballot, and the fact that every single election or every single year is an election in North Carolina. So what are we doing to prepare our communities to create the political power that we want to see by electing who we choose, and then turning out and rocking the vote for who we chose to actually run for that office? And then 3, starting to vote when we actually do turn out, vote from bottom up instead of top down. Because the money doesn't start top down for our communities. The majority of the funding for our schools, when we're talking about data and infrastructure building, when we're talking about budget allocation, when we're talking about environmental justice and having to redo these structures, that starts from the bottom up. The closer the office is to your county, that's the closer of the impact of that office. And if we are not revolutionizing our education to say, who am I electing in? Why am I dependent? Because the Democrat Party, look, nonpartisan, Democrat Party messed us over just like the Republican Party did. They left us out to pasture. We told them to go for Black women candidates. We were very clear. They didn't listen. Look what happened in North Carolina. It was a win for us because 1.4 million Black people turned out in North Carolina to vote because of a lot of you on this call. That's a win for us, but North Carolina still voted for a Democratic governor, and the same people voted for 45. Okay, that's reflective of the core values of this state and the fact that we can't put our celebration solely in national offices because of what Portia just said. Accountability matters. So what do we need to do? We need to think about who we're hiring, who did we just hire, and who needs to be fired next year. And how are we evaluating who we're firing next year if we have no counter of accountability, if we're too busy celebrating a national election that really has no direct impact on our lives. And that's all. Thanks, Meryl. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, lots of agreement in the chat. Local matters. I love that vote from the bottom of the ballot up rather than the other way around. So I think it's time for us to start wrapping up. But thank you everyone for coming out tonight and hearing our reflections on justice. I do want to get just closing thoughts from all of our panelists, and I'll start with some of my own thoughts about this call. I'm going to leave really energized about all of the different ways that people can contribute to this fight in their own with their own individual backgrounds and talents and approaches, and also about how people can bring others from their communities into that conversation. We've heard landscaping, we've heard barbershops, we've heard working with students on college campuses. So there's such a range of ways that we can engage our people and meet people where they are. And so I'm really excited about continuing that work. We'll go in reverse order of the intros. So Isaiah, do you want to give closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are, congruent to what you just stated, Dasia, that I think this was a great start, social awareness, bringing a lot of amazing minds together and people who are tuning in to raise up issues, start the conversation. And I just raise this for the students and everybody that's stuck in their home, finding what you have available in front of you, using your resources of what you have. And like I said, from the vacation Bible school teacher, speaking to the young man after class, or, you know, somebody in the community taking in kids from rough area to live with them and raising up that, using what you have in front of you and trying to find ways to change the system that we know. And social justice is an amazing task, and that makes the change in our country.
Thank you, Isaiah. Natalie.
So I just wanted to say I love the energy from this call, and from all of our communities, we turned out in record numbers for this last election. So to piggyback what Michael said a couple minutes ago, let's use that fuel, that turnout for the election, and take that to our city council meetings. Let's take that to our schools. And there's just so many ways to get involved in the community. Doesn't necessarily have to be through a nonprofit, but there's so many nonprofits in North Carolina, y'all. And there's so many ways for you to get involved. And it doesn't have to be social justice. Or it could be. Social justice has healthcare, education, and so many other things, immigration. So I would say use the enthusiasm of this country coming together to vote, find your true values, and get involved.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Michael.
I got a list, but I'll keep it short. Don't stay silent. Speak up and speak out. For our young ones that's on here, man, hey, this is y'all's future. Me and others I know are out here for y'all, for the next generation, to get their knee off y'all's neck, to get their knee off y'all's success, to get their knee off y'all's dream, to get the knee off y'all's visions, get the knee off whatever it is, for y'all can breathe, for y'all can open up and be yourself. As I stated earlier, stop going off what mama said and daddy said and research what mama said and daddy said, even the school teacher, what she said, even what her or him, what they said. Look up these things. You're being guided in a way that people will teach you something and they want you to follow, but you don't have to follow. Find out what they're giving you, research it, and teach someone else that, hey, you've been guided the wrong way. You've been led the wrong way. Let's start showing more love and not hate. Let's show more care for people in our community. And I stated earlier, if you haven't been to a city council meeting, get to these city council meetings, get involved in your community. They don't want you in these meetings because they hiding things in these meetings. That's why they don't like us in these meetings. But I'm here to tell you, I'm going to a meeting, and I want you to get to a meeting. Like I said, I'm gonna be short, but thank y'all. God bless y'all, and I wish y'all youth the best, man. If you need me, I'm here, and any of the other panelists, if y'all want to reach out, please reach out. I'm involved in this community, man. I'm not tired. I'm out here. I'm out here to stay, and I'm out here to make a change, man. Thank y'all for allowing me to be on here tonight.
Thank you so much. Felton.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone involved with this, Dasia, Meryl. Awesome job, Dasia. And thank all of the other panelists. I've enjoyed this interaction. Ms. Brooks, Mr. Withers, Mr. Harris, and Ms. Rodriguez. It was a pleasure meeting and interacting with you all. Just stay informed. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Network was a big conversation we had this past Saturday with NC Leap. Just don't be afraid to engage. Don't hesitate to be intellectually curious. Your brain still has 1,000,000 miles on whatever technology exists. Use it. Don't just let it go to waste. Test yourself. Test your mettle. Down ballot voting was mentioned, very important. Local matters. You can't hold someone accountable after you've gifted them your vote. Your vote is to be earned, not expected. Remember that. If you want something, tell them you want it before you give them your vote. Don't say, hey, here's my vote, and then let's hold you accountable. Accountable to what? They didn't promise you anything. they got your vote just because. Symbolism, let it die. Let it die a gruesome death.
Thank you, Felton. And Natasha.
Yes, I have thoroughly enjoyed myself this evening. So thank you again. I would say to each of you, especially the young ones, but definitely to each of all of us, lean into your true self, you know, really finding your own identity. Who are you really called to be? We all have great purpose. So finding the greatness within us and using that as our superpower, even if others think it's weird, it doesn't fit, go with it. What you have is unique to you and the world is waiting on it. Don't just hop on things when they're popular. Continue to stay devoted to something that you've stated that you would be committed to. Don't allow age, whether you are young or older, to be a factor in limiting you and your involvement. And even if you attempted something before and it did not work, go at it again. And don't allow fear to cripple you. Use it to fuel you into something greater. So yeah, definitely lean into that superpower that you have. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who joined us, and thank you so much to the panelists. Everyone was amazing, and I know I'll be thinking about this conversation for a while. I'm gonna hand it off to Meryl so he can close us out.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. This is awesome. This is a really, really great evening, and I really appreciate our panel and all of you guys that joined us. I'm gonna share my screen one more time and we're gonna close up, but just wanna make sure folks know that we're gonna do this again next month. And panelists, if you guys wanna drop your information, if your email or your Twitter handle or however people get in touch with you in the chat, feel free to do so. So next month on December 15th, we're gonna have another conversation about creating and protecting healthy outcomes, but we probably could do a part 2 of this as well, and maybe dig into some things a little bit deeper. I wanna make sure that I think the racial equity learning community that will be working with us on the next community conversation. Thank you to Valencia Abbott for connecting us with Aubrey and Keenan. We're really glad to have you guys be part of our session tonight. And thanks to everybody who just, came in here and supported us. Portia, really appreciate the work that you've done with the YMCA Achievers and supporting our youth involvement. And thank you, LA, for your comments and talking a little bit more, enforcing that vote from down up about having impact. So that is it. We will let you guys go, and really appreciate you allowing us to keep you here an extra 4 minutes. And this is how you can get in contact with us, whether it's the racial equity learning community or the information that people are leaving in the chat, or just want to contact NC 100. But super happy that everybody was able to join us tonight, and we will bid you adieu. So have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining us. Dasia, awesome job. Our panelists, you guys rocked it. I can't wait to watch this over and over again. And everybody who joined us on Facebook, thank you so much. We've got a lot of hearts and likes, and we'll replay this on our YouTube channel, and then this will replay on the Facebook channel for NC 100. So enjoy your evening, and we'll see you guys another time. All right, well, I guess everybody else needed to go. So appreciate y'all staying on. But this is awesome, though. I mean, this was good. I mean, I wish we could figure out a way to do these more often and dig into, like, in particular topics and stuff. But
I definitely like the partnerships with school classes.
Yeah.
And I think maybe more would even be open, to that discussion, to various discussions or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I do like the idea of like finding a way. Maybe this is another way for young people to engage, and is this the way to do it? So cool.
Well, you got to get the right young people.
Yeah, I get the right young people. Yeah. But I mean,
they like to sit and look at you.
But I was telling Mike and Isaiah, both being from Reedsville and probably 7 to 8 years apart. So they're just far apart enough to where they don't know each other, but they have like this, Isaiah's doing this wonderful work in Raleigh and Mike's doing his work here. And like, how could we take that energy and start building like these youth councils that learn how to organize? Because we as trained organizers and facilitators, like people are going to gravitate to us in our age bracket, and it's going to be hard to get those young folks to gravitate to folks. Once you get a certain age, I mean, there's only so much interaction they're going to have, but we can get these young folks that are alongside of us, doing some organizing and getting themselves together and learning how to do that and how to convene and network and move ideas forward instead of just kind of talking about stuff and just continue to have the same conversations, but like actually get together, form a group, move something ahead. I mean, the power is unlimited. I mean, the power of the people is stronger than institutions, because we put the folks in institutions there. And if we have that collective will individually and then form together, we can do a whole lot of stuff. It's just figuring out how to do it. So
you're just recording. You're not on Facebook anymore, right?
Yeah, I'm just recording. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I guess I should turn it off too. Yeah, because
I just was asking. I was making sure.
I got to go in and edit it and stuff, and I'm gonna try to get down to the nitty gritty.
Well, hey, good stuff.